Today on CityCast Madison. It's Tuesday, so that means the team's hitting the town for Must See Madison. And this week's destination, Madison's Greenbush neighborhood. The Bush has a rich cultural history, as it was formerly home to a large portion of the city's Black, Jewish, and Italian residents. Today, the corridor is undergoing a major revitalization, and it's making it one of the city's most dynamic areas. So me and executive producer Hayley Sperling sat down with restaurateur Sam Brown, who owns Leopold's Book Bar Cafe, Fabiola's Spaghetti House and Deli, and now the historic Greenbush Bar, to ask about this new era for the Greenbush neighborhood. It's Tuesday, July 16th. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about.
Okay, y'all, we are here for Must See Madison, and it's a very special edition because we are live in person at Starting Block. I'm here with our executive producer, Hayley Sperling. Hello.
Hello, Bianca. So excited to be here live in person. Not live, but in person.
Yeah, I'm calling it live like we're the ones who are alive, and we're alive with a very special guest, someone we are dubbing the mayor of Regent Street, Sam Brown. Hello.
Completely undeserved, but pleasure to be here.
Very deserved, because you are up and down Regent Street. You've got new businesses and some exciting news. We're going to get into the Greenbush Bar. But before we do that, we should say we want to start doing some deep dives into neighborhoods. And we feel like Regent Street is just a perfect place to start because there's so much happening there. And Hayley, this was your idea to kind of dive in and start with Regent Street. I'm going to toss it to you and let you kind of get started. We're going to ask Sam some questions because he's kind of like a neighborhood historian.
Right. I mean, so we've been doing this Must See Madison for a while, right? And we've been sending our friend Phil out into the world to enjoy Madison at its best. But of course, he's got to take a break. And so that gave me the idea of like, let's really dig into the neighborhoods. And there's so much going on Regent Street in the Greenbush neighborhood. And like Bianca said, who better to talk about that than Sam Brown? You are the owner of Leopold's, Fabiola's, and now the very famous Greenbush Bar. So can you tell us a little bit about what you have in store for this new endeavor?
Certainly. Well, Greenbush Bar is a 32-year Madison institution. It was started by Anna Alberici along with her partner, Gretchen Hills. It was one of the first farm-to-table pizzerias in Madison. They were cultivating relationships with local growers long before farm-to-table became a thing outside of fine dining. It's an unbelievable institution. I thought I knew how much people loved it before I bought it, and I thought I knew how much I loved it. But since I purchased it and the news of that is broken, every night I hear from 20, 30 people who come up to me and tell me stories. They tell me about how they went there and picked up pizzas after their son or daughter were born over at Meritor, or how they took their now wife there on their first date. It's been an important place for the service industry here in Madison. Very much it used to be a service industry bar, important to the neighborhood. And I just feel a tremendous custodial responsibility to keep the business going. You know, Regent Street without Greenbush Bar would just not be the same neighborhood.
Yeah, that's so real. It really very much is an institution. And one of the things that I have been seeing online, the biggest question that people seem to have is about the famous Greenbush Bar pizza. Is the crust going to stay the same? Do you plan to change things up?
I would be run out of town on a rail, or potentially flayed, drawn, and quartered.
Yeah.
if I changed the pizza. So the promise I've been making to people is the pizza stays the same. The Christmas lights stay up that everyone loves down there. You know, I really think that this is continuing on. It's not redeveloping the business. It's kind of continuing on a legacy and hopefully making just small improvements, like improving the hours that they were operating. You know, so many people, when they buy a business, they attempt to remake something over in their own image, and they don't really know why people loved a business, and they're too eager to put their own stamp on things. And frequently people ruin businesses that way, and they drive away the existing customers and nobody else comes, and then they just throw their hands up in disgust. So I'm trying to learn from those lessons and make sure that I preserve it as people have loved it.
Well, that's such a great point, and I'm glad you bring it up because, as we've mentioned, there's just so much going on within the redevelopment of the area. And, the Greenbush Bar is located inside of the Italians Workmen's Club. And so I'm curious about what that relationship is like and how you work to preserve that history while revitalizing that space, right?
Well, the Italian Workmen's Club is one of the few remaining institutions from the original Greenbush neighborhood. I don't know if all of our listeners know this, but the Greenbush neighborhood originally is not the neighborhood we consider Greenbush today. It was the Triangle.
Right.
And of that neighborhood, there's a fire pit in Brittingham Park. There's a house next to Regent Street Liquors. There's the Italian Workmen's Club. And there's not the building, but the institution and neighborhood house. And those are the only remaining buildings and institutions from the old original Greenbush neighborhood. The Italian Workmen's Club has done a phenomenal job preserving the history and then talking about the history. When I was on board chair of Neighborhood House, they held a number of fantastic kind of oral history projects with us during our centennial celebration. And they do a wonderful job of promoting the neighborhood's history at Festa every single year. I'm not a lifelong Greenbush resident. I wasn't born in the old bush. My family is Chicago transplants. So I don't have that deeper roots as those people do. But the Italian Workmen's Club has been a fantastic institution protecting that history.
Well, we talked to you about Fabiola's when you guys were moving to the dinner menu, and we got this great. So some of y'all listening might have heard that. But you have a history with Italian food in Madison. Your family has some real stake in preserving the culture, even since you were a little kid. I want to hear a little bit about your history with Regent Street and why you said that you feel this custodial responsibility.
Well, I started working on Regent Street when I was 14 years old. My father founded Rocky Rococo's pizzeria here in Madison on Gilman Street in 1974.
And I still eat it regularly.
Along with his late partner, Wayne Mosley. And we moved to Regent Street in 98 after we closed our State Street store. And I remember, I believe I was 9 when we moved over there, and I was helping my father sweep the floors in our building. And I started working in that building when I was 14. So I've been working on Regent Street for 21 years. We were approached by our landlord to see if we'd be interested in the space adjacent to Rocky's, which is where we ended up building out Leopold's, starting in 2019. And then, I've always, when I was a kid, Josie's was right down the street, which was the last of the great spaghetti houses in the neighborhood. Even after the Greenbush neighborhood had been leveled to make way for urban renewal, Regent Street was still a kind of a hotbed of Italian restaurants. There was Amato's, there was Josie's, there was Namio's further down Park Street, there was Bunky's before they moved to the east side, there was DeSalvo's. So there was this long tradition of these spaghetti houses, big portions of red sauce, along with kind of supper club food too, on Regent Street. And I just wanted to do something to kind of continue that history. I thought I knew how much people wanted to eat red sauce on Regent Street. People really wanted that, really connected with that kind of idea. And also at a time when so much of kind of old Madison is disappearing. Nick's just closed, which was around for, I want to say, almost 70 years.
Yeah, on State Street.
On State Street. There aren't a lot of historic restaurants in Madison. So I think that our neighborhood and a lot of our customers just really connected with being able to find something that reminded them of the businesses that used to be on Regent Street.
It's really beautiful to see you stepping into this space and really upholding something that means so much to folks like all the people who work at the Italian Workers Club. And, when I moved to Chicago, I don't know, a few years ago, I've been back to Madison for a couple of years. There was such a strong sense of the Italian community, everyone's heritage and their community and connections with it. It was loud and proud. And I knew about the history of Regent Street because I took a course before I got to college here. It was like folklore, and they brought us to the Italian Workers Club and talked about the kind of tragedy, the devastating choice by the city to clear out a lot of housing for basically, quote unquote, ethnic groups in that area. And I'm just curious, like how much you have seen the city value the Italian communities, and also sort of like, I mean, you said that there's been a big loss in terms of how many spaghetti houses and how many institutions are around. Has it been significant, the loss? Like, are you supported?
Oh, I think the loss has been tremendous. And, I'm not the best person to speak to this because I'm not a resident of the old Greenbush neighborhood. But, if you were to speak to that generation, the destruction of that neighborhood, they leveled churches, they leveled synagogues, they leveled grocery stores, they uprooted an entire community, Italians, Jews, African Americans, the most diverse community in all of Madison, and never adequately paid them for their homes and destroyed this community utterly. It's one of the great crimes that this city has committed. It was in a period where there was, urban renewal projects like this all around the country. Robert Moses was doing similar things in New York City at the same time. But it's a tremendous crime, and I'd say that the descendants and the Greenbush residents who are still with us can speak a little bit more fully to that than I can. But it's definitely something that I think that the city needs to continue to acknowledge. It's something that younger people need to learn about. I think for a lot of people, as I said earlier, when they think Greenbush, they think bordered by Regent Randall, Drake Street, and Park, like that's the neighborhood. But actually, that isn't the neighborhood.
Right.
The neighborhood is the triangle, and nothing of it remains. So I think that, with any kind of redevelopment, as redevelopment comes to Regent Street, we need to figure out how do we preserve a little bit of that history? How do we make sure that people are aware of what's happened to this neighborhood? And also, how do we, also develop, since there's so little of it left to save?
I'm curious if you think that the city is heading in the right direction as we turn to the redevelopment of that area, or if there are places that could potentially be improved. I know that the Triangle development in itself is going through this massive redevelopment, and it's been kind of praised for its community involvement. And you seem also like someone who is very in touch with the community as well. So is that what you're taking into account when you come in with these redevelopment projects in terms of Greenbush Bar, or, how do you think that the city can help instill the spirit of this neighborhood while keeping it up to date, I guess, for the residents of today?
Well, I sit on a group, the Greenbush Group, which is put together it was originally founded by former Mayor Dave Cheslevich, and he brought together neighborhood stakeholders, and it was originally the Greenbush Vilas Partnership. Jason Ilstrup from Downtown Madison Inc. has done a fantastic job continuing on this project and really kind of bringing all the stakeholders for Regent Street together, both the university, the athletic department, developers, voices from the neighborhood associations, the Italian Workmen's Club sits on the committee, local businesses sit on the committee. At the end of the day, I'm small potatoes compared to most of the people on this. Meritor is represented, the folks at St. Mary's are all there. And just so that we can kind of have some sort of deliberate approach to, well, what do we envision Regent Street being? If there's no plan, it's going to be developed. It's probably going to become student housing because there's tremendous need. The UW needs, a ton more beds. So unless there's a plan really made out, Regent Street's just going to probably resemble East Wash. So what about the current neighborhood can be improved? What do we want to see this street be? Do we want to see this be an athletic corridor? Do we want to see this be a corridor kind of like Monroe Street, where we see local businesses and residential, mixed use? Does it want to be more of a student housing area? These are all kind of questions that this group has been tackling. And, I think that the answer is probably going to be a little bit of, all three options. There is the game day experience. There's no moving past that. Then there is also, how can we preserve a portion of Regent Street that really speaks to the history of the neighborhood? And then also, how do we meet this city's crippling need for housing? So that group has, I think, done a really fantastic job of directing some of the development, and some of the projects that were originally proposed through this group we work with Vanderwall and Associates, and they were talking about infill developments on the rail corridor site, which is the Houseman Johnson offices, all owned by Alexander Company. And we started those discussions about, 12 years ago. And now we're seeing those sites actually be developed along the lines of what was proposed. So it's been fantastic to see. But we're still very much in the visioning stage as to what does this group want to see for Regent Street.
And you talked about all of these constituencies and you're working well together, which is wonderful. Love to hear that. What about you? Like, what do you want to see?
What do I want to see? Well, I'm a preservationist at heart. And I think that there is so little, in part because of the terrific work that Roger Charlie at Budget Bicycle has done, preserving all these fantastic old buildings along the street.
First bike I bought in Madison from that Regent Street Budget Bicycle.
Regent Street has some fantastic architecture that I would love to see. I see the project that the folks at Butterbird did, renovating an old building, restoring it, and putting in tremendous dollars. And they've created an absolutely beautiful restaurant that adds so much to the street. So I would love to see kind of those. I'd love to see more of that kind of development that utilizes some of the interesting architecture that's already there. I also think that more housing is definitely useful. I mean, the construction happening right now at Park and Regent, that's bringing thousands of more students and more people into the neighborhood. So I think it's a combination. I do think that there is a wonderful energy to Greenbush. You have Cleef Park, you've got St. James and the parochial school right there. You've got the energy that having students in the neighborhood brings to the place. It's really just this fantastic combination of young and old and retirees and young professionals and students all living together. And we don't see that a lot of other places in Madison. It's also one of the last places, and I talk to my employees who are a lot of college kids about this all the time. It's one of the last areas in the city with a lot of affordable student housing because, ultimately it's the old housing stock that's the most affordable. So I think that there is something kind of magical in this combination. And one thing that worries me a little bit about Madison and that I've seen during my lifetime is we've led to this world where there are student neighborhoods and there are neighborhoods for everybody else. And we've kind of divided up the city in that way. And there's, State Street has definitely turned into an area that is far more student targeted than it was when I was a younger person. And I think that's kind of to the city's detriment. I think one of the great things about the city is how combined the university is with the city. And Regent Street and Greenbush is a great example of that sort of combination. And I would kind of hate to see that lost for more just turned into a student area. I think that combination really adds a lot of magic.
And one of the points that we haven't quite touched on yet, but you mentioned that you're on the board of the Neighborhood House Community Center, which is also going to be undergoing a massive redevelopment and has so much cultural significance. It's the oldest neighborhood center in Madison. Can you tell us a little bit about those future plans and again, how you bridge that past with the present and the needs of the future?
Certainly. So I joined the board of Neighborhood House in 2012. They were looking for pizza for a movie and meal night, and so they reached out to me, and I said sure. And then after we'd been donating food for some of their events, they reached out to me to join the board.
I love that you opened the gates with the pizza.
It always unifier.
You know what I always tell people? I go, I'm wholly unqualified, but I can always feed people. It's the one thing I can do. I don't actually know what I'm doing, but I can feed people.
You're humble.
Yeah,
I've been on the board since 2012, and I'm the board chair. We began kind of the redevelopment discussion. It's been ongoing since I first joined the board. There's always been this understanding. So Neighborhood House is 107 years old. We originally existed in the old Greenbush neighborhood. We were founded actually due to a paper written by a UW grad student who proposed the creation of a settlement house in line with Hull House from Chicago to serve the disadvantaged Greenbush neighborhood. And Attic Angels was one of the first organizations to help fund us and provided some of the money for us to open our doors back in 1916. We moved to our location after the neighborhood was leveled in 1966, and we've been there since. And if you've ever toured the neighborhood house facility, I can promise you that not a single thing has changed since 1966. It is the same fixtures, the same leaky roof, the same heat system that does not work. It's a disaster. Yeah. As I said, I'm a preservationist. So we went looking for kind of a creative solution to how could we as an organization that is asset rich but cash poor parlay that into a new community center. And we put out a request for proposals to developers in 2022. And we ended up coming to terms with Alexander Company. And we also thought that was kind of key to our mission would be that this would also include affordable housing. So we are building a new 5-story building. The first floor would be a new neighborhood house community center, almost 17,000 square feet. We currently have about 4,000 usable square feet.
This is so exciting.
It's been a dream for so many years. I was just talking to some of our previous board presidents, and this has been a long time dream of our organization. And to finally be able to take it to fruition has been fantastic.
This is crazy. I mean, Regent Street, it's so dynamic, and all of these endeavors are they're blowing up and they're happening and they're coming to life, and there's more to come. We have to ask, because this is Must See Madison. So it sounds like there's going to be a community center at some point soon.
We are supposed to break ground in spring. So that would be spring of 25.
Oh,
and
wow.
then it's going to
So
be about
sooner
18 months of construction. And it will include 60 units of affordable housing that range from market rate all the way down to 30% AMI.
Amazing.
For folks who haven't been to Greenbush,
yes,
where should they go? Like, obviously, the Greenbush Bar.
Greenbush Bar used to be my go-to answer when I wanted to suggest a place that I didn't own, so I didn't come across as an egomaniac. I'd always be like, and Greenbush,
gotta do it.
Yeah, I'd be like, Leopold's is great, but Greenbush Bar too. But now, that isn't quite as good an answer anymore, is it?
You're running out of places.
I am running. I'm just acquiring them all. Must see Greenbush neighborhood. I think that St. James Church and Cleef Park and that area right there is absolutely beautiful. And I love the energy of the neighborhood, especially in the fall. Walking up to the Annie Stewart Fountain, which is on the south end of Greenbush, in Vilas Park, overlooking the lake, although there is plans to move that to neighborhood house.
Interesting.
Yes.
That's news.
Yeah. We're working with the Arts Commission currently. The fountain is decaying, and we're looking into the feasibility of moving it into a new exhibit space. We're going to have a 1,400 square foot exhibit space in the new neighborhood house, which will tell the history of the Greenbush neighborhood. And we're thinking about incorporating the fountain into that. Annie Stewart was actually a founder of Attic Angels. And so there's a nice tie-in there since she was actually part of the group that raised money for the original neighborhood house.
And I love that little full circle moment, because that is one of Madison's oldest pieces of public art.
The oldest piece
going into oldest neighborhood center.
Yes.
We love that. So one fun, quirky question that's been on my mind. I've been reading a lot about Greenbush, because there's so much history, for us to have this great conversation. But one of the things I was reading is that people often used to affectionately refer to the neighborhood as the Bush. Do people still do that? / should we bring it back?
Bring it back.
Bring it back. Bring back the Bush.
Right.
Greenbush residents definitely still refer to it as the Bush. I don't think it's quite as popular with new residents who've moved into the neighborhood. But I know I know plenty of people who still refer to it as the Bush.
It will be. Right. It will be popular again.
All right, Sam Brown, we're going to see you at the Bush. Hayley Sperling, thank you so much.
Thanks, Bianca.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you.
That's Sam Brown, the new owner of the historic Greenbush Bar. He also owns Leopold's Book Bar Cafe and Fabiola Spaghetti House and Deli, all in the Greenbush neighborhood. And that's him talking with me and Hayley Sperling, our executive producer, about the past, present, and future of the Greenbush neighborhood. That's all for today here on CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin. If you enjoyed the show, why not share this episode with the person in your life who can cook a mean spaghetti sauce? We'll be back tomorrow morning with more stories from around the city. Until then, take good care.